How Jerusalem was paganized by Hadrian and reclaimed by Constantine from Aelia Capitolina to the Holy City. So this perfectly captures the whole story, actually, that Hadrian and Constantine contributed to turning Judaism, Hebrewism into Christianity, and turned Holy Jerusalem into a pagan city called Aelia Capitolina. So this actually captures the whole story of how Judaism was paganized into Christianity. That's why in Christianity you have the Easter as your pagan celebration, Christmas as a pagan celebration, celebrating the summer solstice, because pagans, they worship nature, and especially they worship the sun. S-U-N, sun. The solar sun, the Helios sun. So this one here nicely details, gives you a timeline of what happened. So you have this Bar Kokhba revolt, and this Bar Kokhba revolt actually annihilated Judaism, and they were able to establish the paganism in Jerusalem after they annihilated. So this Bar Kokhba revolt annihilated Judaism and established their Roman rulership in Jerusalem. So here it says 50 of the most important outposts and 985 of the best known villagers were razed to the ground. 580,000 men were slain in various raids and battles. The whole of Judea became a desert. So that's how they completely wiped it out and established their own pagan system after wiping out Judea. In the wake of the revolt, Emperor Hadrian aimed to erase Jewish presence from the city completely, renaming the city Aelia Capitolina. Aelia from his family name Capitolina to honor Jupiter Capitolinus, the supreme Roman god. So that's like Jupiter. They pagan idol worship, fake god that is not a god, but they believe it to be a god. Temple of Jupiter was built directly over the ruins of the Jewish temple. A statue of Jupiter was erected on Temple Mount, where Christ was crucified and resurrected and was buried. A statue of Hadrian himself was placed within the temple. A shrine of Aphrodite, Venus, was constructed over Golgotha, so where Christ was crucified, where the 3 crosses are. So that's where you can link up how Saint Helena is taking ownership of the cross and became a cross lover. The traditional site of Jesus' crucifixion and burial. So you will see the Aphrodite, Venus, and Saint Helena is directly connected with this. And Saint Helena is not some kind of good saint, but a whore of Babylon that represents Aphrodite and Venus. Complete filth. They erected the temple to a lifeless idols of demons over the place of resurrection. Jews and Jewish Christians expelled. Hadrian issued a ban on all Jewish entering Jerusalem except on the day of the year to mourn the destruction of the temple. The first 15 bishops of Jerusalem were Jewish in origin and well-versed in the Hebrew language and scriptures. These bishops included figures like James the Just, referred to as brother of the Lord, who led the church in Jerusalem in its earlier years. These Jewish Christian bishops maintained fidelity to Christ while honoring their Jewish heritage and customs. So that was initially what they had done. So they creep in very slowly in that way. The rise of Gentile leadership, bishops of Aelia. So over here you will see first wiping out the Jewish completely, to the massacre completely. The whole of Judea became a desert. So you will see that wiping out. And in the second part, you will see some Jewish bishops are allowed. They have maintained the Hebrew language and scriptures. So they will allow a little bit of that. And then in your third installment, they will come in and even take that away, and the rise of the Gentile leadership. So the Jewish are completely taken off, and the Gentiles are creeping in, slowly taking over Judaism, Hebrewism, the work of Christ, and turning it into a completely Gentile system of what Christianity is right now. With Jewish expelled from the city, the Roman authorities allowed only Gentile Christians to remain. Thus began a new phase of Jerusalem church. So they got rid of the Jewish eventually. James the Just they got rid of him, and then thus began the new phase of Jerusalem church. The Roman authorities allowed only Gentile Christians, which is like, Gentile is anyone that is not a Jew. So only Gentile, which is like the Romans. So the non-Jews, the non-Hebrews were only allowed, only the Romans were allowed technically at that time, or the Greeks at that time. The bishop was transferred from Jews to Gentile leadership. So that bishop position, the Pope, the current time Pope, only now you have like Polish popes, Greek popes, Italian popes. You never see Jewish popes. So that's because the leadership has been transferred into the Gentile, into the pagan Gentiles, and no trace of Jewish, no trace of Hebrew within the Judaic religion, within the Hebrew Son of God religion. There is no trace of Jewish, but everything has been transferred into Gentile leadership, which is the modern day Christianity. So there's no Jewish, no Judaism, nothing. The bishop was no longer known as Bishop of Jerusalem, but Bishop of Aliyah. So it's like the modern day Vatican. So the Vatican's taken over Judaism, the Vatican's taken over Hebrewism. So it's that. So no longer the Bishop of Jerusalem, but the Bishop of Aliyah. From the time of Hadrian until the reign of Constantine, the succession of the bishops in Jerusalem was Gentile, for all the Jews were prohibited from entering the city. So they completely took over Judaism. And then you'll see the Constantine's timeline come through and the Hellen's timeline come through. So whatever you're looking at this timeline with Hadrian, or you're looking at this timeline with Constantine. They are all the same people. It is just their systematic effort, step by step, to take over Judaism and convert it into Christianity under the pagan laws. That's what it is. So over here it says, Constantine legalizes Christianity. Yay, we finally have freedom. But that's not it, because Constantine is still a pagan. Saint Helen is still a pagan. That's like Antichrist and the whore of Babylon. With the Edict of Milan, Emperor Constantine and Licinius legalized Christianity throughout the empire. Constantine soon turned his attention to Jerusalem, not as a political capital, but as a spiritual heart of Christianity. Oh, how nice. Because once they have eliminated all the Jews, once they have eliminated any trace of Jews and converted everything into the Gentile pagan Roman system, now they have converted that into the heart of Christianity. So you have to understand the underlying psychology and how the demons are playing this game of totally eating up or totally claiming or totally and completely and utterly parasiting Judaism. Saint Helena's pilgrim. In 326 AD, Constantine's mother, Saint Helena, undertook a pilgrim to the Holy Land, guided by local Christians. She identified key sites associated with Christ's passion, death, and resurrection. What is this? Saint Ambrosia. You can't make this stuff up. Saint Ambrosi. Sounds like Ambrosia. Writing about Helena. She sought the footprints of the Lord and found the places of his passion and resurrection. She adorned them with splendid churches. That's written by Saint Ambrosia. Because they're deluded, they give themselves these names. Saint Helena only wants to be written by Saint Ambrosia. Destruction of pagan shrines and Christian churches built. Yay. Constantine ordered the destruction of Hadrian's pagan temples and initiated a large-scale Christian building project. Wow. Church of the Holy Sepulchre, built over Golgotha and the tomb of Christ, previously buried under Hadrian's shrine to Venus. Eusebius recorded the dramatic uncovering of the Christ tomb during excavation. The cave of the Savior was discovered, and the Holy Sepulchre revealed. The emperor ordered a magnificent house of prayer to be raised. Life of Constantine. So Constantine is known to legalize Christianity, but you know the stages of legalization and how they have successfully eliminated and cleansed. It's called ethnic cleansing. They have cleansed out the Jews and completely turned it into a pagan system, and now they're turning that into a heart of Christianity. Then they established the Church of Nativity in Bethlehem, Ilona's Church on the Mount Olives, Church of Ascension, later rebuilt by Christians. The emperor directed the Maccabees to erect a church on the site where the Savior had been buried, having razed to the ground the idol temples. From desecration to resurrection, Hadrian tried to erase Jerusalem's religious identity by turning it into a pagan Roman colony, banning Jews and Jewish Christians and erecting temples to false god over holy places. But 2 centuries later, Constantine reversed this desecration with Helena's help. The church reclaimed the sacred geography of salvation history, not with weapons, but with faith, memory, and stone. The transformation of the Aelia Capitolina to Christian Jerusalem wasn't just political. So we have Christian Jerusalem here. Wasn't just political, it was theological. The city that once rejected Christ was now being rebuilt in his name and would remain the heart of Christian pilgrim for the next 1,700 years. So you have like the transformation of Aelia Capitolina to Christian Jerusalem. So that's exactly what's going on. So it has nothing to do with Yeshua, Son of God. It has nothing to do with a Father in heaven. It has nothing to do with the actual work of Christ. But it is the demons turning El Capitolina into Christian Jerusalem. So not Judaism, but pagan Christian Jerusalem. And that's what you have to understand. And that was their goal. The initial goal was to turn it into Christian Jerusalem, because they first annihilated the Jews, and then after that, progressively after that war, they have progressively established the Christian Jerusalem. So even though they put up their pagan temples and did all their pagan worship, they decided that was not good. If they wanted to imposture Christ and live as a legitimate Christian, they would get more worship. So they actually got rid of their own old system and decided to do a Christian Jerusalem without any Jews in there, without any Hebrewism, without Christ. They completely took over the religion and turned it into a pagan Christian religion. So Christianity still has nothing to do with Yeshua, Son of God, because he did not create Christianity. You can see the timeline and the story unfold. And who established Christianity? Who established the 25th of December, worshipping the sun? Nothing's changed. Constantine, that legalized Christianity, was a sun worshipping pagan. And even up to this day, Christians are still worshipping the sun on the 25th of December. 25th of December is a winter solstice. So they're still worshipping the sun. So nothing has changed. So if you are telling me they transformed a pagan system into Christian, there is no proof of that, because even now Christians are still worshipping the sun in the name of Christ. So that's what's happening with this, and that's what people have to wake up to, that the Christians of this world has been conned and fooled, and they haven't read the scriptures properly, and they are their own testimony that they haven't read the scriptures. They don't understand their own religion. They are their own testimony, because they are celebrating the pagan sun god in the 25th of December. They still observe that pagan festival on the 25th of December. They still do that. They still celebrate that. And you also have Easter, another solstice, another spring solstice with the Easter. They are still doing that as well. The man of lawlessness. Let no one deceive you in any way, for the day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawless is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. This has already happened with Christianity, but it's just that they have still used Christ as a cover for themselves. So they haven't fully come out and said, it is actually I, the whore of Babylon, or it is actually I, the Antichrist, or I, the Satan. They haven't come out fully and revealed their identity, but there are many people giving testimony of what's really going on. But the man of lawless will come and will take his seat on the temple, proclaiming to be God. And that theme is already present throughout time. You can see how he is annihilating the actual heritage of God and putting himself in the place of God through Christianity. So when you worship Jesus, you're actually worshiping the Antichrist. So Jesus is actually Antichrist. Santa is Satan. Mary could be seen as the whore of Babylon. Within that Christmas system that they have created, the direct opposition of Christ is the Antichrist. So the Antichrist is naturally going to take the place of Christ when it comes to Christianity, and Satan will place himself as Santa. That's pretty straightforward to see. So he will do that at the end again. So he will take the seat of the temple of God and proclaim himself to be God. But right now with Christianity, he hasn't proclaimed himself to be God. So he is hiding under the guise of Christ, but not totally revealing his identity, that Christians are actually worshiping the Antichrist. So Christians don't know they're actually worshipping the Antichrist, because the man of lawless has not exposed himself or revealed himself. But at the end, he will proclaim himself to be God, and that's when Christ is going to come. Once he proclaims himself to be God, that's when the Son of God will come and show who the true God is. Echoes of the abomination of desolation is when you desolate the temple, and that's when Christ appears, when the temple is desolated. Christianity is a form of the abomination of desolation, but except the lawless one hasn't declared himself as God and is hiding behind the image of Christ. But after he declares himself God and does no longer hides under the image of Christ, that's when Christ is going to come.